Somewhere over the rainbow.
Hello friends, here in Nevada County and beyond, I have a very delightful, very deep guest today who I'm very honored to have in my presence. Her name is Dr. Andrea Deerheart. She is the passionate founder of the Heart Way, a nonprofit corporation dedicated to embracing life and honoring death. And we're going to talk about how that's related, how there are two intricately interwoven elements in human life. Using wisdom gathered from decades of guiding the living and dying, physically, spiritually, and psychologically, Andrea has provided loving care for those on the journey of conscious living and dying. Her work of teaching focuses on issues related to aging, radiant well-being, cultural mythology, death and dying, as well as grief and loss, and mindful and compassionate care. She also offers diverse programs emphasizing the relevance that the lessons learned within death have for living a more loving and compassionate life. Dr. Deerheart is a death doula, psychologist, a certified classical yoga Nidra teacher, great posture. Andrea has a very diverse educational background from sociology, counseling psychology, and doctoral work in mythology, depth psychology, comparative religions, death. My goodness. Now you see why I'm reading this. There's no way I can wrap my mind memorizing this. Dying and beyond. She is a sought-after consultant, writer, and poet. And here gracing our Just Jan show today is Andrea.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Lovely to have you here in Nevada City.
It's
So
awesome.
before I ask you about the path of how you came to the doorstep of this very deep, much needed work in our social fabric, you're new in Nevada City.
I am.
And so what was the path of that moving here? Why did you come here?
Nevada City's just beautiful, and I've always been drawn to the mountains, at least the last decade of my life. So I was heading to the mountainous area before I ended up moving to Nevada City, and it wasn't the city of choice for me, only because I wasn't aware of it, basically. But I met the love of my life who lives here in Nevada City, and I came to share life with him and work with him as well.
Oh, that sounds very exciting.
Yeah.
Very wonderful.
And I'm thrilled. I love it, and I look forward to weaving more into the community. I'm really an infant here still, just really being here a few months.
But what I have seen, the work that you are bringing, and later in the show we'll talk about her offerings, and she is magnetizing people to this topic. I have said before that Nevada City is a jumping springboard for the new paradigm, and one of the ways that Americans work and deal with death and dying is her topic and her subject. So let's jump into that now. What was your life event that you are aware of that precipitated you being led on this path of working with the death and dying?
You know, it goes way back to when I was a little girl. I can remember a time in my life, probably around 6 or 7 years old, when everybody around me was dying in my family of heart disease and this and that. And I wasn't allowed to participate in that journey. My parents, bless their hearts, wanted to protect me. And it just grew darker and darker in my heart. It has to be terrible if Mom and Dad wouldn't allow me to participate in it or see it or even see somebody in the hospital. So I can remember one day going in my, I admit it, my pink and red Raggedy Ann room, and going under the covers, taking my little dog with me because I didn't want to go alone, and I wanted to figure out, I wanted to die. Not die because my life was so miserable, but I wanted to experience what death was like, so maybe I wouldn't be so scared. So we went under the covers. I took my dog again because her name was Queenie, and I didn't want to go alone. We went under the covers. I don't know how long I lasted, 30 seconds, a minute, until I was suffocating, and came back out, and completely figured out that death was not a good thing.
Not for you,
Not
uncomfortable.
for me. Uncomfortable and scary, and it was as horrific as I had thought. So I grew up. I started to grow up, and my death anxiety grew.
Oh, so it became something, because your parents weren't comfortable with it, and in those days, there was no way to talk to a child about death. There's no way for them to understand it, and our parents, they were a little bit asleep in their consciousness of and they would just put it underneath the carpet. So how many people were dying, and were they very close to you?
My relatives, and I remember
Okay.
my close family member having an accident and being in the hospital, and I wasn't allowed to go. So it was a different consciousness, just as each generation
Yes.
brings in. And in some ways we haven't moved that far. We still protect our children from
Yes.
death, and they actually are much more comfortable with death than us adults. In fact, they learn the fear of death through us.
Through us, yes.
Yeah. So
Because-
they're actually they're actually my greatest teachers when it comes to death, because they're wise and working with children at the end of life as well. They're not afraid.
Children can hear truth.
Mm-hmm.
Adults build up many, many layers to
Yeah.
that resistance.
Yeah.
So you were gathering these experiences
Mhm.
in a sense of anxiety. So
Mhm.
it became your mystery to unravel.
It did. It was, what curses us also blesses us.
Yes, it became your journey.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mid-20s, I had started a career actually in marketing for those.
Okay.
And I figured, I just knew that wasn't the path. I was actually in Boston working at the time, and I came back to California, and I was going to go get my MBA so I could go back into the world. I was going to change the world. I was 26 years old. I could do this.
Oh, yes.
And I was going to get my MBA, and this is a pivotal moment in the journey that I now can look back on hindsight. And I said, I want to go back out there and teach management that you can manage with a heart. You can still get your numbers and you can still get success, but there had to be a more congenial, passionate, connected way of doing business. And I was in sales and marketing, so I was right at the core of the financials of a corporation. And I started to study for my entrance exams, and this death anxiety was haunting me, and I had some time. So I
Was
decided...
it related to the exams?
Oh, yeah,
Just-
absolutely.
It was like a live or die situation.
Test anxiety for sure. I had absolutely to this day. But so I started volunteering for a hospice.
There you go.
I
That was the door.
blindsidedly courageous, naive, and I don't know what else. But I went head first into the waters. And my first patient died in my arms, and with her death
Oh my goodness.
went my fear.
So that the presence that you had there melted your fear. Describe how it melted your fear. What transpired? Did it seem natural and peaceful, which of course it is?
At times, death isn't always peaceful, to be very honest. What transpired in that moment was the experience of being present to a death was not at all what my imagination was about death.
Aha, fantasy and reality came together.
So it shattered the fears in a moment and replaced it with an awe and wonder.
Our viewers
That involved-
need to hear this. They need to hear to not be afraid. And hospice, I mean, it seems to me it would have been the most frightful things for you to enter, but it holds you in to your healing and your true work, that which you feared the most.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same conversation with every people we interview on Just Stand. What you fear the most, which makes you go like this, has such a depth to it that if you go down in that deep part, you have so much. It's hubris, there's so much composting there to become something, to really grow into something. So that experience, and what after that?
Well, I was working with a very beautiful spiritual nurse at the time, and she saw me afterwards, and she was asking what I was doing, and I said, I was studying for this entrance exam. And she goes, and I said, what do you mean?
Yeah. She saw you. She saw you.
She saw me, and she said, it's rare that I feel this, but this is where you belong.
Ah.
And I was touched enough and moved enough and curious enough to follow that.
You know,
it was the initiation in Joseph Campbell's philosophy of follow your bliss,
yes,
as well as the hero's journey.
yes.
I had been initiated, and I was initiated deep enough to start the walk on the path of the hero's journey, which I'm still on. I haven't achieved that. It's a lifelong journey in my heart. So I switched and did the entrance exam for psychology, and went and got my master's in counseling psychology, and continued to volunteer, and then became a hospice social worker.
So you even switched the direction of your studies. And my next question is, that led you to becoming, this might be a new word for people, a death doula. Because we think of doula as birthing a living baby, but can you tell us what a death doula is and does?
Sure, I'd be delighted. A doula in ancient times was the woman that took care of the transition into life for a woman, okay? But through a transition. So a death doula is the same thing as a birth doula. It's transitioning someone into another existence, into another life. So death and birth really carry a very similar energy. It's a transition, it's a transformation. So a doula is someone that goes in and supports the dying as well as their family on that journey, helping them, helping to invoke all that is within them and their families to embrace and honor this process of death, dying, and beyond. And every family is a little different in that. And every family has different needs, from legacy work to vigil work to grief work to advocacy work.
As you can see, as I read through her different course of studies and the experiences in all the families that she's worked with, she has now created this beautiful nonprofit with very profound services for the dying that augment your typical hospice services. So please tell us about the Heart Way, the organization.
And beyond too. The Heart Way has been evolving for decades. I've had the honor of companioning people to the threshold for where they must walk alone for the last 30 years.
Wow.
And as a hospice social worker, I learned and deepened so much on this journey. And then there was a point in the mid-1990s where hospice's core mission and value and myth changed as they shifted to the medical model of dying. Before that, hospice was very much a holistic, integrative process of supporting people at the end of life. And it still is to some degree.
Okay.
They have the social worker, they have the chaplain to support, the nurse, the medical doctor.
Yes.
But what shifted is they are bound by insurance guidelines. They're bound for the services in that way. So it's very restricted, and in the medical model, they have lost the integration of the depth of psychological and spiritual needs at the end of life.
It can fall through the cracks. Yes.
I couldn't weigh what's more important. It's just all important. And I just finished a death cafe before I came here, down in Laguna Beach. I was virtually brought in, and it's always different. And I've been leading it down there for 2.5 years, sometimes physically, sometimes virtually. And one of the topics was just about this. At the end of life, people were sharing stories of different family members, of them allowing them to transition by supporting their transition by saying, it's okay to go, we're going to be okay. Free yourself, follow your journey, and within hours somebody dies.
Permission. We have so much more to talk about, and you've piqued my interest with the Death Cafe. And I have a flyer here, and I happen to know she serves chocolate at them, so it's all good. So we'll be back in just a moment with Dr. Andrea Deerheart of Heart's Way. So thanks for joining us today. I am Jan, just Jan. People sometimes say, now why is it just Jan? It's because I grew up in a big family, and I was the 6th child, and my mom didn't think Janice or Janet. She said just Jan. So my whole life people would say, is it Janice? No, I'd say it's just Jan. I also wanted to say that I so honor your work, and I deeply understand it. As a registered nurse and having been a professional singer, I did music at the bedside and became a certified music practitioner and did music at the bedside for 6 years with Sutter Hospice. And I could see the trauma and the dissolution of the family systems in death that the medicalized system cannot and doesn't address, especially when it's profit-driven. So what you're doing is bringing back humanity, sanity, and a absolute light on something that actually can be a transformative healing experience where the person letting go, you even said that person died in your arms, it transformed you. So if that family has the proper tools and skills and a master like yourself, then that can be one of the new changes for our social systems. So what she's designed is this death cafe, and I'm going to have you talk about it. Eat chocolate, drink tea, and discuss death. That is fabulous.
I didn't design it, first of all, I have to be honest. The beauty of it is the
teamwork.
The Death Cafe is an international organization. So people all over the world are having death cafes, which is really kind of special to think we're sharing this with people from all over the world, having these discussion groups in coffee shops or in the homes. But one thing everybody's doing is serving tea, coffee, and chocolate cake or chocolate. So always chocolate at the Death Cafe.
Good for the brain.
Always good for the chocolate. And the Death Cafe is really a sacred space, a sacred place, a safe place to come and talk about death, dying, and beyond. Just today, several of the people that were in attendance, and people were sitting on the floor. There were that many people down in Laguna Beach. It was really lovely to witness. Many of them talked about not having a place to talk about death.
So the people that come, are they actively with someone that's dying? What's your typical client coming to a death cafe?
The beauty is there is no typical client that comes to a death cafe. We have those that are young and those that are aged. We have those that are dying, those that have lost someone, those that are just afraid of death and want to ask questions, those that just sit and listen to take it in. So it's very beautiful. It brings a whole menagerie of people together, and we meet at the heart and soul. My goal when I walk in a family's house is to meet them where they're at, to be an empty tabla rasa when I walk in the room, so that I can try and see what's emerging in the family and offer pieces for their opportunity for transition. Death bids us that opportunity, it just does. So yes, the Heartway has a pet therapy dog, Daisy, who is with us often to support people. We do utilize music, art therapy, different type of music therapies. I even had one client, so beautiful, go and do equine therapy with horses. So, and she is someone that spent her whole life with horses and ran a ranch, and so for her to be able to, she couldn't ride the horse anymore, but be able to touch the horse and brush the horse, our hearts were just so open with that beautiful gift. So it's really the call to see how we can support a closure in life, how we can support someone finishing the business of this life that they need to do to be able to let go. And in that, I'll expand and I'll deepen. Mostly I want to say that it bids us that opportunity to be in love and in intimacy, and an intimacy that we usually do not feel or touch in other times in our life. It's a sense of being home. Hearts are connected. At the end of life, nobody's really worrying about what trip they didn't take, what they did for a living, how much money they have. I can say many elders tell their kids where the money's hidden, which is a good thing. But besides that, it really is about how we loved, who we loved, and how we feel loved. And that transcends the physical body.
You hit on something so important. We don't feel safe to open our hearts in everyday life. So you're facilitating heart opening.
I sure hope so.
And when that happens, healing. Yeah. Healing and peace for the person transitioning and the whole family.
Yeah. Everything's present at death. Everything's present. The peaceful, the
That's why it's so
sweet,
scary for
the
people.
ugly, everything's there. Everything's there.
I'll tell you the other element I wanted to bring out
Sure.
is that by saying music and equine therapy, you're building a community. And every one of those experts coming in is having their release moment, just as you had when you're... So you're at fulcrum point of lots of change for a lot of people, not just the family and the clients, but weaving community and helping them as well overcome their fear.
We need each other. This is one of the moments that we especially need each other.
And it's beautiful that you chose that particular space, because hospice, again, has to be funded and it has certain people. So how do people work with you, and how do they contact you, and do you come in? Is this something that they make a donation to your organization, or tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The Heartway is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, and we have chosen not to charge for services. So the next question is, well, how do you survive? How do you do that? And through donations, through grants, we do whatever we can, programs, some books, different ways that to keep us supported. But I can't bring money into the end of life. There's so many things on our minds and our hearts, and I don't want it to be in the middle of this sacred journey that needs every ounce of our being and family beings to support and nurture.
And how can you give it a price?
Yeah, I can't.
It's
That's the
priceless.
problem.
Well, what is beautiful is as families see the value and they work with you, when that person passes over, there's an opportunity for part of that money to come from the family estate or whatever. As someone who gave them through all that what they really needed, and the family knows. They know who made the difference and who was there in the Heartway.
I'd like, the Death Cafe will be in Nevada City the last Wednesday of every month. and it'll be at the beautiful California College of Ayurveda
Oh,
on
perfect.
Zion Street, and it'll be on Wednesday nights, the last Wednesday of every month, between 7
Mhm.
and 8:30. Yes, there'll be tea, yes, there'll be chocolate,
Mhm.
and we'll circle up and share. And I'm so looking forward to meeting community. I want to share another program and CD that's coming out, and I wish I had it. It'll be out in 2 weeks. Yoga Nidra Graceful Transition, and
Oh,
I recorded a
beautiful.
CD for those at the end of life, their families, those that are grieving, or anybody that's wanting to face and deal with any energy, emotions, or anxiety around death.
Is it
Out clear.
spoken word with music?
It's
Is
spoken
it
word.
your word,
It
your
is.
voice?
It is. It's a guided practice, a
Beautiful.
guided conscious awareness and relaxation. But what makes it very, very special and important, Yoga Nidra is an ancient practice. It leads us to a place, you're doing a full body scan, and the research is absolutely in and about the benefits of Yoga Nidra, from lowering of anxiety,
Wonderful.
lowering of pain, blood sugar, cardiovascular, autoimmune.
Excellent.
But you're awake during this process,
Mhm.
and you move towards a state of Yoga Nidra, which is on the cusp of the consciousness, that place where you start to witness yourself. The power of this is so many integrative medicine, integrative
Yes.
approaches to healing and understand is this is the place where creation happens, and you tap into the place within yourself where you can create the world you want. The difference
Beautiful.
with Yoga Nidra Graceful Transition, it's focused on visualizing ourselves pain-free.
Oh, excellent.
Visualize
Intention.
ourselves surrounded by
Mhm.
compassion.
Yes.
And then the vision of allowing us to leave our body, and the vision of what that our imagination looks like. And through that practice of that visualization, peace surrounds us. Peace.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's get to this book. It's so beautiful. I thought it was a one of a kind, but she had this
Aw.
special
Thank you.
edition. Tell us about this.
This is Ellie's Ride, Death Beyond Imagination. And it's a story that I had the honor of writing of a little 11-year-old girl that died 10 years ago. She was my daughter's best friend. She was a beautiful Iranian girl who touched all our hearts. And I had the honor and privilege of walking by their side for the 2.5 years of her journey to death, supporting the family. And she touched me so much, and I wanted to create a legacy for her family as well as my daughter. And so I wrote this book. And this here, I don't know how clear this will be, but this is Nazijan, and she is a multi-headed elephant. And Nazijan means grace in the breath of the soul. And the journey of the book is taking you through Ellie's death. And I narrate the story through her death, but it's told through Ellie's voice. This is a creative nonfiction or an imaginal biography. And then as she's in her dying process and she's starting to leave her physical body, she meets Nazijan up in the clouds, and Nazijan becomes her psychopalm, her guide.
This is a whole world of dying medicine in this book.
May it serve. May it serve.
It shall, and it is.
Okay.
Well, I've had you as my guest, and I'm dumbfounded with the depth of this work, and there's so much more to say. But I wanted to just have her on the show to introduce you to Dr. Andrea Deerheart. She is here. We are blessed. She's in our community, and will weave a new story for dying here in our community and beyond. So please, how can they contact you?
Yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out and touch if there's a family member or yourself that you think we can be of support, make connections for you, or serve. And you can find us at theheartway.org. Feel free to call if you want to, 949-433-8228, and we sure will be happy. And may your heart be full, and may you live every moment as if it's your last. And may you have many journeys.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you for
Namaste.
joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.